Shut up and sit down.
Hey guys, it's Sai and welcome to ACEcast Podcast. On our channel you will find podcasts, interviews and content on a variety of subjects including football, mental health, films, wrestling, true crime, conspiracy theories, music and more. We upload 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're constantly adding new series. We have new guests every week. We've had podcasters, doctors, ex-footballers, authors, journalists, pretty much a bit of everything. X Factor finalists. The best way to support us and help keeping us bring good shows, new series, great guests. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ACEpodcastNation. Leave comments, share the videos and posts. Today's show is on football, and I'm thrilled to have ex-Scottish international, former Cardiff City, Rangers, Dundee and Aberdeen midfielder, current head coach at, I'm going to butcher this name, Hakoah Sydney City East FC. Mr. Gavin Rae is joining me. Welcome, Gavin. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you're coaching then at the moment out in Australia. So
Yeah.
Get the weather and the football.
Yeah. No, it's been good. I've been coaching at a semi-pro level for since I arrived, basically. I was assistant coach first and then head coach for the last sort of 3 years. One was as a player coach still. I was still playing. I played till I was like 39, semi-pro. And then I took over as head coach, so just coaching, which I love. It's been great, a great experience, learning a lot about, managing players. And we've got budgets. We're at one tier down from like the A-League. In New South Wales, so it's like a highest level you can go before going A-League. So it's decent standard, and it's we pay our players, and so you're getting to learn all about basically managing a football team, which has been great.
Yeah, I guess when you go from player to manager, one of the biggest sort of obstacles or changes is having to sort of manage different personalities and get them all pulling in the same direction. Some players respond to a bit of a telling off, some will respond to a bit, need a bit more encouragement or whatever, which obviously as a player you're not as worried about that sort of stuff because you're concentrating on your game and the tactics and the team. Did you find that difficult to sort of go from that to that, or did being a player coach help that sort of transition?
I think being the player coach helped, and also being captain in my last couple of years in football as well. It's sort of the bridge between the management and the players. So it was quite an easy transition into doing that. To be honest, you can't. Most players don't respond to bollockings at all nowadays.
No.
It has to be. It's just that's totally gone compared to obviously when I was growing up and coming through. It seems to have sort of turned around totally, and it's got to be a bit more nicey, I think, with most of the players.
Yeah, I suppose I think I spoke to like ex-Borough player Alan Moore about like the players. Obviously, when you came up, and I spoke to Cav and a couple of other people, is when they came up as apprentices, you had to clean the boots of the pros and stuff like that, and like. Andy Campbell said that it really helped him to be cleaning the boots of like Juninho and players, Ravanelli, players like that who are like world class, and you get to sort of pick their brains and speak to them on a daily basis. You're getting the kit ready and stuff. Obviously, that's gone. Whereas when I spoke to Alan Moore, who's involved in sort of academies and stuff, he was glad that it was gone, and he didn't. He said that the boys are there to learn how to be footballers and play football and not do jobs around the ground and stuff like that. So it was like 2 different points of view, but both actually from Middlesbrough. Both started with Middlesbrough. Where do you stand on that?
I'm definitely with the younger players should definitely still be doing jobs, because it stood me in great stead, not just in football, but just in life going forward, just actual knowing and having responsibility. I think a lot of the kids nowadays, they just, yeah, I get, the point that they're just there to learn football. 100% get that. But we were learning football plus you're doing the responsibility side. You're working hard. You realise you've got to work as a team. Like if one of your teammates doesn't do his job around the ground and it's not right, then all of you get punished. So you have to step up for your teammates, and they have to step up for you. And if they don't, then you find out quite quickly, who's the ones that's going to be with you as a good teammate. But certainly discipline for me as a person more than anything. I left home at 15, 16. My mum and dad done everything. My mum mostly done everything for me. I know it. And then you just go down, and you have to learn to do stuff for everyone else. And it's just a massive learning curve. And I think 100% they should still be doing it. I think just from my own experience, it certainly stood me in good stead. So I think they should do it, but I can see both points.
Yeah, I think obviously I've never played professional football, so I haven't been in the situation. But my opinion is that a lot of these players, if you play in the Championship or the Premier League now, as soon as you break into the first team, they're making more money in a week than some people get paid in a year. And I think if you're like 17, 18 and you get that sort of contract, you've never had to pay bills, you've never had to organise your household and whatever it may be. And I think things like that help with that sort of part of life away from football. And like I spoke, when I had a sports psychologist on, she was saying that she thinks that more clubs should educate young players on those things as they're coming up. Like they should have someone to help them, work out how to pay their council tax or whatever it may be. Because from personal experience, when I was like 17, 18, didn't have a clue about anything like that. My mum did everything for me. So like when I moved out, it was a bit of a shock to the system. Yeah. All my money was going out elsewhere, and I had to do things for myself and phone people and sort stuff out. And I guess when they,
How did you do that though? How did you learn that?
By doing it basically and do it. I was lucky, looking back, that my mother, from my very first paycheck, when I got a full-time or part-time job and then a full-time job, she always took a little bit of money off me, whether it was 20 quid a week or 50 quid a week towards keep. And I resented that because I've never had a full paycheck. But now as an adult, it's like, well, you never get a full paycheck because you've always got to pay something, mortgage, rent, whatever it may be.
100%. But the thing is, like, I know a lot of these academies, they've got the great contracts and they get the car. It's easy. Before they're even hitting first team, they've got lots of stuff. But to give them someone else to help them learn to do basic things that normal humans do anyway, kind of defeats the purpose for me. They should have to learn that themselves. Yeah, because that's life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Instead of giving them someone to, help them do normal day-to-day things, they should learn that, because everyone does it. And you might fail, of course, you might fail a little bit, and these things happen, but you learn. Whereas I think the ability to learn has just been taken away a bit because they're just given everything straight away. Yeah. And that's when they come up against tough times, it's when they don't have the coping mechanism to deal with it, and they just give up because they don't know what to do. And I think that's the biggest thing from my experience was, it was tough and it didn't go to plan all the time, but you had that resilience in you because you'd done stuff, you'd been doing things for other people, and you sort of learn quickly to step up, or else you're going to get swallowed up. And that'll happen anyway. But if you've got an opportunity to learn and how to deal with that first, then I think that's probably the biggest grounding that you can have.
Yeah, and I think the fact is, like, whether you're a multi-millionaire footballer or someone who works a 9 to 5, life's hard, and the best way you can progress and learn is by making mistakes. And I do feel sometimes when I look at like young footballers, they get that taken away from them because they, like you say, they are given everything. They get a lot of stuff done for them. So then it's like almost like they don't have to deal with anything themselves. So then, like you say, when they come against sort of tough times or things where it doesn't go to plan, they haven't got the, like you say, coping mechanisms or just the ability to deal with it as a human being, not even as a footballer.
Definitely, and that's the biggest thing for me is I think that's why I probably think they should definitely still have that responsibility for sure.
Yeah.
And it is tough. I mean, I had horrible times, in that first couple of years YTS. It was really tough sometimes. You make a mistake and you're getting absolutely hounded from your teammates, from the first team, and your manager and your coach, of course, you were really brutal at that point, and you're thinking, wow. But then you learn to deal with it, and you move on. And I'm not saying it works for everyone. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, but just from my personal experience, that's what I think helped me, basically.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So when I speak to people, particularly when I speak to like footballers, I like to go sort of back to the start and just see where you came from, what you did. So you're an Aberdeen boy. What what was your sort of upbringing like? Your brothers and sisters and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've got a sister, an older sister, 3 years older, and my mum and dad, and very, lucky to have a good lifestyle. Nothing too extravagant, but never wanted for anything. And it was very middle class upbringing, and it was great. I had a great childhood.
Cool. Did you always want to be a footballer, or was there like other sports you were good at, or?
Nah, to be honest, I was not particularly good at any sport, including football. Until and I was a late developer, like really late.
Yeah.
And like all my friends coming through school and even younger than that, when I was younger, all the players and all my mates were all signed up with clubs, and I was never signed up with any club. I actually think that helped me long term. Definitely, because I still had the hunger and drive just to keep going. I still wanted something, and it was like they already had it. Like they were going down to Manchester United, Chelsea. There was loads signed with Celtic. There was loads signed with Rangers. Boys signed with Aberdeen, of course. I trained with a lot of these clubs, but I never got offered any like S forms or deals at that point. So I was sort of, as I say, a late developer and went from having nothing and just keep driving to try and get something straight to YTS at Dundee. And then all these boys who had the S forms, who obviously thought, "Oh, this is easy. I'm set. I'm going to be a footballer," None of them made it, and that's no detriment to them. And that's just my path. That was the path I was on, and I think it helped me.
Yeah. So how old were you when you sort of got into the Dundee Academy then?
16. So I left school at 16. I left school at 16 and went straight to YTS. So I had no F forms. As I said, I'd been trialling with a few clubs. I played like juvenile, so that's just like local sort of football league, juvenile league, and was in a decent team, but never got that next stage. And then just toward the end of my last year at that level, things were going really well. And then Jim Duffy, who was the manager of Dundee at the time, came up to watch me against another team who had a striker that they were looking at as well. And we both played really well, and both got offered contracts pretty much straight away. And then joined on a 2-year YTS deal.
So like that is quite late, actually, 16, isn't it? Because like my youngest boy's in a sort of development side just under an academy, and my oldest boy's in an academy, and they like the oldest one's a goalkeeper. He's been in since sort of, I think, under 7s or under 8s or something. Like they do get them in early, and like with Cardiff now, particularly, they've got like the academy, then they got the development centre, and then they've got like another one under that, which if they see players who are decent but not maybe academy level at the moment, particularly if they're quite young, they get them in there, so they've got like professional coaching and try and develop them up through the age groups. But I think generally, as a rule, by the time they're 16, you tend to get picked up or not. And so, but then I suppose another thing I was speaking to the sports psychologist woman about was Tracy. She was saying like a lot of kids, they get into the academies at whatever age, quite young. They think, particularly if they're like 12, 13, 14, they feel like I'm in an academy now, so I'm just going to work my way up through the ages, and that's it. And
that's the same as the boys that were signed S form with my friends. So there wasn't so much all that opportunities and facilities around when I was coming up. Academies and professional coaches for all these for these young kids. There wasn't as much as that for sure at that point. But it's exactly the same process. These kids that are in the academy think, "Oh, I'm in the Cardiff City Academy."
Yeah.
I've made it. And then they just stop. They think they've done it, and that was the same with sort of a lot of the boys that I signed S form with, that signed S form that played with me. They, probably thought like similar thought processes. Thinking, "Oh, I'm going down to Man United. I'm going to Chelsea. This will be easy. I'm going to do it." Whereas I didn't have anything to fall back on. So I'm thinking, I'm fighting, I'm scrapping, I'm going to do everything I can to get to this point. And you still need luck along the way, of course. But it's just that different route. And for me, going at 16 was definitely the best option for me at that point because I was a late developer.
What sort of players were your heroes growing up, or like who were you pretending to be as a kid?
Well, when I was growing up, Aberdeen were phenomenal. They were like winning all the trophies. I just thought that was normal for a club like Aberdeen. But Sir Alex Ferguson was the manager at the time before he went to Manchester United. So, I used to go down with my dad, and they had some great players: Willie Miller, Alec McLeish, Jim Bett, a midfielder, Charlie Nicholas. Some great players. And just for me to be able to go and watch all these fantastic players was great. And I used to obviously like all these players as well.
Yeah.
Maradona's my hero. I didn't ever think I was going to be like him, but I think he's unbelievable. So,
unbelievable.
when I was growing up, I think he was the best.
So you're lucky, really, because like obviously the Scottish Premier League is dominated by Celtic and previously Rangers. So you're lucky in that when you grew up, like Aberdeen was sort of at the top of the tree. And they won the European Cup as well, didn't they? Of course, Aberdeen. So
Beat Real Madrid 2-1, 1983. I can remember getting a day off school. But yeah, it's when I was going to watch him. What Sir Alex Ferguson done with him was unbelievable. We were the best team, winning all the cups and the trophies, and for a provincial club that hadn't had as sustained success as what they got. It was a great time to be a fan, and stadiums like 10-15 minutes from where I grew up, and being able to go and watch them was really good. Great.
So you signed to 16 on the 2-year YTS with Dundee. How old were you when you made your first team debut then?
I was 17, so it was my second year YTS. But I was very lucky to get my second year YTS, if I'm honest. I was terrible the first year. I was away from home. It was like I talked about, doing these chores, doing these jobs around the ground, totally foreign to what I've been used to. In an environment with boys from all over Scotland, a lot more maybe gallus and confident than what I was. So the first year I really struggled. It's funny, I was kind of homesick as well. Dundee's like an hour away from Aberdeen. I was homesick, which again just shows you maybe how, not sheltered, but how protected I'd been at home.
Yeah.
So, and football wasn't going great. I was below the level of where I should have been or where I could have been. Just didn't go well at all. But towards the end of the first year, I started picking up. I started getting to grips with it. And at the end of the year, when they bring all the YTS players in and tell them if they're going to get, a deal or they're going to get released, basically, what happens every year, which is horrible. Jim Duffy and John McCormack, who was assistant and youth team manager, says, listen, you have to go away, you have to work on this, this and this. So it was fitness, heading and shooting or passing in your touch, and come back next year. We're going to take a chance on you. We think we've seen enough just towards the last few games to give you an opportunity. And just them telling me that changed my whole career. It was like, right, confidence, bit of confidence. They've seen something. I'm going to go away. I'm going to work at these things. I came back and I played every youth team game, every reserve game, and I think 5 first team games in the second year. So it was like totally chalk and cheese to the first year. And it just shows you, what confidence in football is. Everyone says is, vitally important. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a bit of a sliding doors moment almost. To like if they'd sort of thought, well, he's only done it for a couple of games at the end of a season, he hasn't done enough. You could have gone. They could have said no thanks, and it could have been
100%.
different completely. Whereas them giving you that little chance and sticking with you and giving you a bit of confidence just changed the whole outlook of where you went.
For sure, and
can't fault that, can you?
We talk about a little bit of luck. They could have easily been in a different mood that day, or looking forward to that day and just said, "No, he's not done enough." I was physically strong. I was always quite physically strong. So even from when I was like 12, 13, I didn't have the technique probably at that point, and was never blessed with great natural technique. But I think just having the physical attributes and then the day-to-day training, towards the end of the year, I could start feeling really a lot better. And I think I'd just probably done enough. But yeah, for sure, they could have easily just said, nah, that's enough. And you go somewhere else and you might go part-time and you might never get the opportunities, I did have. And that is exactly it. As football, you need a bit of luck along the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely need luck. Did you feel like the sort of pressure to perform when you were young? Or was it just like you're so young, you sort of just play and you focused on training and playing and hard? Or did you feel like there is like that extra pressure going into the first team?
Not so much at that point, but if you'd asked me the year before, I would have probably crumbled, But again, it was just the confidence. Like in the second year, when I went into the first team, I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm ready. And that is so far polar opposite to what it was the year before. But just a bit of self-belief, a bit of confidence from others, and yeah, I felt fine going in there. As I say, I was physically strong enough. I was never physically inferior to peers or older people at that point because I was always strong enough. So it was more about the technique and the ability wise that I had to just make sure I was on my toes. So that was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, and you went on to make 200 appearances for Dundee that time round, which is this massive amount. I mean, I know it was a while ago, but it's still it's a big amount for to stay. Do you ever feel like you may sort of be a one club man, or was there always a sort of desire to go test yourself elsewhere?
Oh, there was always desire to go and test myself, at other clubs. Because I'd broken through quite early. I'd been, 17 and then went into the team and then was playing and then came out of the team. The managers changed and then sort of fell out of favour with the new manager and then he left and then got back in favour and then we got promoted to the Premier League. So there was, it was a long period of time. But when I was in the Premier League and I was playing week to week, that's when you start getting more, you were noticed more, obviously. And because I was playing every week and I was playing well and I was scoring goals in the Premier League, not lots, but enough, as a midfielder, for other people to sort of notice. And you hear whispers, you hear of interest, and once you hear that, then you think, I would love to try and, go to the top level and play at a big, massive club. But Dundee as a club were fantastic to me throughout my career, and obviously signed for them 3 times. So, but the first time was great, and it was it's always a place that I'll fondly remember, of course.
It's I think in Scotland as well. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the amount of eyes on like the product as football in the Premier League compared to the leagues below is huge. So, like for instance, in like Wales and England, you'll know about the Scottish Premier League, and you'll know about Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen, and you'll know what's going on. But I couldn't tell you anything about any of the leagues below that. Yeah. So, like you say, when you get up to that sort of the Premier League, suddenly there's a lot more eyes on you. Is that fair to say that there's a big difference in sort of viewers or people who are paying attention?
Sure. Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, I think it's the same top league in every country. Although obviously the Championship in England and Wales is still a huge league as well. and all the leagues are, but it's in terms of numbers for sure. The Premier League's obviously where you want to be, and whether you get all the live games and all the reporting, most of the reporting's done. The lower leagues are pretty well followed, but not as well reported on because it's not a country, so there's not as many people going to watch these games. But having played in that divisions as well, there's pressure in that divisions as well, but there's certainly not as much eyes on you for sure.
So 2004, then you made the move to Rangers, which obviously at that point I think Rangers were still Rangers and Celtic were in their pomp, and it was very much them versus each other. There must have been like a big move for you as a Scotsman to go to a club the size of Rangers. For
sure. I mean, it was, I didn't realise how big a club it was when I signed, and that's me growing up in Scotland. I mean, they are just a massive, massive club, and obviously Celtic are as well, huge, worldwide clubs, just worldwide famous. And I probably didn't realise just how big they are, and just how famous they are, and just how well followed they are. And it was the right move at the right time. It didn't work out. A couple of bad injuries there when I was there, but yeah, it was great to sign for a big club like Rangers.
Did you play in an Old Firm derby?
I think I played in 4 or 5. I think maybe 4 or 5. I think.
So you were lucky because then you played in the 2 biggest derbies in the world, in the Old Firm and the South Wales derby. So
of course,
lucky.
Played Dundee derby as well. So I played a few. I played Old Firm games. I mean that's phenomenal, to be involved in.
Yeah, they. I think sometimes people from sort of this side of the UK, they don't realise quite how big the Old Firm derbies are, like worldwide as well. They're watched everywhere. I spoke to a couple of people from America recently, and they've said like when that's on, the pubs are just rammed in America watching, and obviously a lot of the time it's like early in the morning, isn't it? But
same here, same in Australia. I mean, obviously they've got their supporters clubs all over, and they all congregate and watch the games, no matter when it's on. There's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people there.
It's mad, isn't it? Because like when you think, I guess a lot of it comes from the 80s where they were doing so well in Europe and stuff. Because obviously, like these days, it's like the English Premier League is like everywhere, and it's constantly sort of in your face, and it's that and it's this. But it's a big sort of, it's a real good thing that Celtic and Rangers for Scottish football have made themselves into this worldwide entity, so that when they do play, people are watching.
Worldwide famous, like you say. It's not just supporters of Rangers and Celtic will watch it. Even when I was playing at Dundee, I remember every time there was an Old Firm game on, we would all get together and watch the game. On a Sunday and watch it and have a few drinks and watch the game. It was just like huge. It's a huge occasion in Scotland and worldwide. People just stop and watch the game because it's massive. The build-up is just like ridiculous in Scotland. Like in press, it starts like 2-3 weeks out and it's daily, in the papers. So it's it's huge game.
The atmosphere is intense as well, isn't it? It's just loud and passionate, should we say?
I mean, on the pitch, like you actually can't shout to your teammates because they can't hear. You can't hear each other, and that could be like 5 meters away, and there's no point in even like shouting. You just can't even hear because of the noise. It's phenomenal. Yeah,
it's crazy that, isn't it? That you can't like shout so close and can't say nothing. So so then you moved from Rangers to Wales's capital city, quite possibly the greatest team the world has ever seen, in Cardiff City. How did that come about? How you sort of approached? I know that at the time there was a lot of rumours that there was plenty of interest from sort of championship clubs.
Yeah. So basically, my contract came to an end at Rangers in 2007. Walter Smith was the manager by this point and actually offered me another year to stay at Rangers because I didn't really manage to hit my straps at Rangers just with a couple of really bad injuries. And he offered me the chance to stay for a year, but I was quite ready to go at that point and just get a fresh start somewhere. And the opportunity to move to, down in England, the Championship or one of the leagues down there was something that was, enticing. I was speaking to Norwich because my old manager, Jim Duffy at Dundee, was the assistant manager there at that point, or was the coaching staff, part of the coaching staff. And Dave Jones, who had often went to the Scottish leagues and done pretty well, and kept an eye on a lot of the players up there. He called my agent, and then he actually called me when I was on holiday. And he was the one that was driving, and he was the one that made me feel more wanted. He talked about knowing me before I went to Rangers, which again, I thought, he knows the type of player I am. He was naming the type of player I am and what he wants me to do with the team, and he just made me feel wanted, and that's why, it was done pretty quickly. As soon as I flew down to Cardiff from my agent, I think it was done that day or the next day. It was all pretty straightforward from there, and I was ready to move. And it was, it turned out to be a great time. I loved it.
Yeah, I can imagine it's quite like a big thing, like you say, because obviously with the Norwich thing, with Jim Duffy being there, that must have been quite tempting to go there. And it shows how much, if someone's got the confidence in you and they want, they're not just signing you because they need a midfielder. They know where they want to play you, why they want to play you. And, like you say, it makes you feel wanted. That's going to make a big difference. To be fair to Dave Jones, he left perhaps failing at the last hurdle for Cardiff. He never quite got us over the line. We had some great times under him, though. But he had a great record, like you say, for bringing Scottish players over, like McNaughton, Stephen Thompson, and just bringing them over, and for very little money, and they always, did pretty well.
I think Dave Jones, one of his best strengths was putting together a squad. I think he was really good at that, amalgamating a good squad together. He was, like you say, the feeling wanted, and the fact that he knew me or he remembered me from before. Norwich weren't really showing me, as they wanted me as much as what Cardiff and Dave Jones wanted me, and that's what swung it. Yeah, it was just like, 100%. Let's just get this done.
What was Dave Jones like as a coach and a guy? Because he sometimes in interviews he comes across as a bit bolshy and a bit, I don't know, a bit arsey really. But like I read his book, and he seems like such a nice guy, like a really genuinely nice person. Really, like what's the word I would use? Just seems like quite a kind guy. Yeah. But that never comes across in his football interviews.
Yeah, I think you probably nailed it on the head. I mean, behind closed doors and within the squad, I think he is like that. He's a good guy, definitely a good guy deep down. There's no like nastiness to him, or long term nastiness. Everyone can fall out and you get on with it. It's a working relationship, but I think sometimes when he's speaking to the press, or when he was speaking to the press when he was at Cardiff, and he can come across that way a little bit, maybe a bit arsey and a bit bullshit. But I had my ups and downs with him, but I've got nothing but respect for him. He was doing that. It was a tough job being a football manager. I know what it's like now. It's difficult trying to keep everyone happy, but very thankful him that he reached out to me and managed to take me down, and had some great times at Cardiff, and unfortunately fell at the final hurdle. Similar. Yeah.
Did he have a hairdryer had to get out when it was needed, Dave Jones?
Oh yeah, no, you could. I think every now and again he would. Terry Burton definitely could. Terry was a little angry man at times, but great coach. Dave didn't do much of the training coaching like on the field. Yeah. He left that to Terry, and to be honest, I'm pretty similar. I let my assistant do most of my coaching. I like to do the coaching now and again, but he identified that Terry was a better on the field coach than him, and I like to let my assistant do my coaching. Similar sort of thing to be a manager. So I can understand that, but yeah, as a team, I thought they worked great together, along with Wilco and obviously Marge. Yeah, it was great, good times. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Had a really, really strong squad, and yeah, like Sam Aman was trying to take Cardiff to that next level, to the Premier League, and we just never quite could get it under him. Do you remember? I've asked all the Cardiff guys this who were there sort of that time. Do you remember the first time you met Sam Aman, and did you have any sort of preconceived ideas? You haven't met him?
No, because
No way.
Rizdale was there.
Rizdale was there. He left, did he? He crossed over, didn't they?
I think he just left. So I was
okay.
The infamous Peter Rizdale. So yeah, he was an interesting character as well.
Yeah, I don't like him. Peter Rizdale, he's just like Sam Man. He like I know that he sort of things went a bit sour towards the end, but like I respect what he did for Cardiff. He came in and he completely changed the way the club viewed itself.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're the capital of Wales, act like it, and you should be aiming for the top." And he just changed the whole thought process behind the scenes, the fans, everything. So Rio Ferdinand famously said that Ninian Park was more intimidating than Istanbul. I think like the Cardiff City Stadium doesn't have the same intimidation factor, but it's still, the fan base is incredibly passionate. You were lucky enough to play at both. What was Ninian Park like to play at?
Ninian Park is honestly one of the best stadiums I've played at. I used to love playing in Ninian. Just what a stadium, like proper old school football stadium. Bit dilapidated at parts, but just the atmosphere was magnificent. Close to the ground, chaos in the away end, and just brilliant. I loved it. It was a great place to play football. Good pitch, nice enclosed stadium with the terraces close by. Good atmosphere, and yeah, I think I only maybe got 1 year or maybe two, maybe at Ninian. But yeah, it was amazing times. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed that sort of the enclosed, being really close to the pitch and the terraces. It just adds so much to the atmosphere.
Definitely.
And what they've done with the Cardiff City Stadium now as well is they moved the loudest part of, or the loudest fans within the Cardiff end. They've moved them to the opposite end of the away fans, and I think I can understand why they did it, but it takes a lot away from the atmosphere, because when you've got the away fans and the most vocal part of the fan base next to each other, they banter back and forward, and that's what creates the atmosphere. And yeah, sometimes it can get a bit intimidating and you might have some idiots and whatever, but like that's what makes the atmosphere and the passion behind football. And I do think that they've lost that a little bit. I wish they would move the fans from the one end back up there, but that's another story. So you played with some great players at Cardiff as well. You were pretty lucky. Like I always think, I always say Jay Bothroyd is one of the most talented players to ever play for Cardiff. And he's still playing now. I think he's playing in like Thailand or something.
Oh, he's in Japan. He's been in Japan.
So yeah, he's been there for a while, hasn't he?
Oh yeah. Yeah, mate, when Jay signed and in training, the day after he signed, he was doing things with the football, and we used to obviously play against players and you think, wow, he's good. He came in and he was unbelievable. You could see why he'd been at Arsenal as a kid. The actual natural ability he had. Big, quick, strong, 2-footed, skillful, can finish. Everything. He had everything as a football player. Everything. He's an awesome player.
I think to be fair, Cardiff was probably his most successful period, where in terms of putting together a season of performances, I think that was probably his most successful period was at Cardiff, and he scored some amazing goals.
You got consistency at Cardiff, and I think Dave gave him that belief, and I think just the group suited him as well. We're all good guys, good mates. Everyone was close, and yeah, he flourished underneath Dave and at Cardiff, and he's a sensational player.
Who would you say is the most underrated player from Cardiff for your time there?
Oof, good question. I mean, I know people rated Steve McPhail, but I think to the extent that what he was appreciated by his teammates, I mean, what a player. I mean, never hardly gave the ball away, and a great partner for me, in midfield. I thought he was a great player. I know he was our captain as well for a few years as well, but yeah, I thought Maka was a very, very good player.
Who was the sort of the joker of the squad? Who would be sort of winding everyone up and keeping the sort of banter and the atmosphere going, perhaps when you lose a game? Or
it's pretty obvious, but Tomo was obviously always in that. I played obviously at Rangers with Tomo. He was at Dundee United when I was at Dundee as a kid, so we've sort of mirrored each other's career. But yeah, Tomo's good banter. Keeps the boys going when times aren't going so well. Kevin McNaughton, good funny guy as well.
Yeah.
A lot of stories. He's a good guy. So yeah, no, there were some good characters in there. Chops as well, for even all the sort of just the silly stuff he done. It still gets the squad close together. And Joe Ledley, with some great guys, some really good guys. Roger Johnson, even when he was coming through, he's banter, but for like just different sort of banter. Everyone sort of bounced off each other really well with a good squad. Roger
Johnson was he was one of the coming through. I remember when he played his first few games for Cardiff. He's like a Rolls Royce of a defender. So good. Yeah, really liked him.
Great player.
So you made, I've lost it now. I think it was 14 appearances for Scotland.
Yeah.
How old were you when you got your first call up?
I was actually 23 when I first played. So I was still at Dundee at that point. I hadn't moved to Rangers at that point. I was still playing for Dundee and played against Poland in my debut over in Poland. So I was 23 at that point.
It's quite young, isn't it? I mean, this shows that you were playing really well to get the call while you were playing for Dundee, rather than playing for sort of Rangers or Celtic or someone in the Championship or the Premier League or whatever. Were you nervous coming into like your first game for Scotland, or because it's like a camp, isn't it? So I suppose it's not like you sort of turn up the day before and then you play. You're there for a week training and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you obviously notice a difference in training standard. Everything's quicker, and there's some really good players. They were all very welcoming. I don't really struggle going into groups of people. I normally can go in and sort of start speaking to anyone and sort of relate to anyone. But obviously you get a little bit nervous. But as soon as the ball comes out, I always I always treated football, always have, always will, as got to think of it as just a game. Even the FA Cup final for Cardiff, you've got to try and strip away all the fans and it's 11v11 on a pitch, playing football, you're kicking a ball around, and I always try and bring it back to that, it is a game, and that's hard at times to do that, but especially when I was training with Scotland, I'm just thinking to myself, don't worry about it, it's just a game, just go and play, do what you're good at, and just go and play football and enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess it's like just doing what's got you to where you are anyway. You've got selected for doing playing a certain way or doing certain things. You've got to just try and keep doing those things no matter as you go up the levels, I guess. So you had a little stint at Dundee after Cardiff before going to your hometown club of Aberdeen. So what was like, obviously kids all over the world playing football, they're dreaming of playing, being a professional, and they're dreaming of two things really, they're playing for their hometown club, playing for their country. Like, which one were you sort of more emotional over? Was it, playing, doing tunnel walk and that sort of stuff? Was it Scotland, or was the Aberdeen like a big deal for you as well?
Well, Scotland's always will and always will be the pinnacle for me, playing for my national team. Playing at Hampden for my national team for Scotland in an actual qualifier on a Saturday at like 3:00 was just like mind blowing, with all my family there. That's the best. It doesn't get better than that for me. But certainly a close second, playing for obviously the club I grew up supporting, which is like 10, 15 minutes from my house in Aberdeen. So it's obviously very precious as well, for sure.
I always think like the teams in like Scottish Premier League outside of Celtic and Rangers, they must be like really motivated to try and like take them on and knock them off that perch and be the first club to win the league for so long. When was that? I don't even know when the last time a different club won the Premier League in Scotland. Do you know?
Oh, good question.
As you see, I do think it's like a long time ago, isn't it?
It'll definitely be the 80s for sure. I don't think since the 90s. It has to be
Crazy.
the 80s. Yeah, no, Aberdeen definitely won it in the 80s. I think Hearts maybe won it in the 80s as well, but since then, I don't think anyone else has won it, to be honest.
Yeah, so like there's got to be like a big sort of motivating factor for the teams in that league, particularly the ones who are in the sort of, it's like upper sort of mid-table teams. They must be desperate to sort of make that step up.
Definitely, but it's such a big gulf in terms of finances because
that's what I was
they're
going to say.
30, 40,000 people more a week compared to some of the other clubs. So if you think about that, in terms of revenue and finance for the players they can get, it becomes very, very difficult for the other clubs. It's all because there's two huge clubs with such a huge fan base in a league where there are other clubs have got big fan bases, but nowhere near the size they have.
Yeah, do you think we'll ever get champions again of Scotland, which are not Celtic or Rangers, or do you think just the finances difference is so great and the size of the clubs is so different that it'll perhaps never happen, or do you think one day maybe?
No, you always hope, and I think possibly one day, but it would have to be like an anomaly, almost, like Leicester City winning the Prem. Very similar, not one of the bigger teams, but just having a phenomenal season, and the other one's not maybe doing as well and taking points off each other. I think it would have to be something like that for it, to be able to get another team to win it.
Yeah, I guess maybe if like one of the clubs has like a group of young players come up together and they can kind of hold them all together and they progress.
The problem with that is young players that go at these clubs, they just get
poached
because other clubs, and not just in Scotland, all over. I mean, that's world football. It'd be good for a club to be able to stick together the youngsters all that time through it, but whether that happens, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then I suppose as well is the like Rangers and Celtic, they get more money from like Sky and stuff like that. So it's like because they're bigger, they get obviously the crowd money, but they also get more money in sponsorships and TV deals and stuff. So then it creates this sort of vacuum where the other clubs can't sort of keep up, which is a problem. But I mean, I don't know. There's not like a solution to it because you can't punish them because they're successful and big.
No, of course.
But equally, you want to almost try and even the playing field a little bit to make it more than two teams sort of competing. I know there's other teams who do compete, but
they do. But to us, generally, as the two top teams are always up there. But yeah, it's always going to be difficult. I think I mean, even in going back like in the 80s, like Aberdeen and Hibs, maybe Aberdeen and Hearts, only other two I can think of that have won the league. But that was only for a very, very short period. Whereas over 50, 60, 70 years, it's always been Celtic and Rangers. So it's not something new. It's just probably magnified just with the press coverage we get nowadays.
Yeah, they've dominated for a long time, I think, haven't they? So you were at your hometown club Aberdeen, and then you finished off with Dundee, which must have been a nice way to sort of. I know you say you played on in Australia as like semi-pro, but obviously from a UK point of view, you finished off with Dundee. That must have been like a nice way to finish where you started.
It was perfect the way it finished. I was club captain last year, and we won the league on the last day. I just thought, I actually had it in my contract that if we got promoted, I automatically got another year. I just thought there's no point, because I could go back to the Premier League. I've played in the Premier League hundreds of games, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
wasn't guaranteed to play every week. You know, I'd sort of been there and done it. I was just thinking, go out, last game, winning the league as captain, and the club you started at, it's perfect. It's ideal. Just cut your losses now and move on. And we were ready to move. We're ready to move to Australia. My wife's Australian. So it was just like, it just all worked out perfect. And I just said to the club, listen, thanks very much for the offer, but it doesn't get better than that for me. It's just the timing wise. So let's just call it a day. And I was happy to sort of have my own destiny, choose my own destiny, whereas some other players get retired because they're not playing and they get released and then they're still wanting to play on, where it was actually like, it worked out good. It was just like me, I'm saying, that's me, guys. Thanks for everything. I'm actually just gonna hang my boots up professionally as of today. And it was perfect. It worked out great.
Yeah, you couldn't have written it better, could you, I suppose? So obviously here on Ace Podcast Nation, we do like a podcast series on mental health. We got one in particular which focuses on mental health and sport. And we just talk about like the pressures of sport, the pressures and the traps which young players can fall into with social media and things like that. But also we've discussed, like I spoke to Alan Moore, like I mentioned, and he was discussing the issues he's had since retiring, including like battles with mental health and a suicide attempt. Why do you think it's like sportsmen, particularly footballers and boxers, seem to be the two sort of professions? Why do people think that they find it so difficult to sort of not let go necessarily of their playing career, but just that jump from play into not seems to cause issues?
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably hard to explain why football and sort of boxing would be the two, but you obviously miss the buzz of playing. First of all, being around the dressing room, of course, is a massive thing. You're in a team environment all the time. So when you leave that, you're out on your own in the big bad world. You've got to sort of cope on your own, and you've also then got to transition into like a real job. And there's not any training for that. So if you are not a confident person, if you're not open to it, if you haven't thought about doing anything prior to retiring, and then it comes to retirement and you're retired, and then you've got to think, oh, well, what do I do now? Then I can see for sure why people struggle, without a doubt. I was lucky. I mean, not lucky, but I think I've always had an open mindset that, it's never going to last forever. So what else can you do? And I was always open to trying other things. I left the UK. I came to Australia. I had no job. I had no, career to fall back on because I went straight into football. I ended up going straight into technology recruitment, and I've sort of been doing that since. But then that's going into an office where I've never worked in an office before. I'm in there with people who are 20 years younger than me, earning the same amount of money as me, have more skills than me, and you've just got to suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah.
Some people struggle with that, and I totally get that why, and I know how people might struggle to transition into normal sort of work life and just normal life after football, where everything's done for you. You turn up at this time, you're here, there. This is where you've got to be. Your boots will be packed for you. You've got a game. This is when we're training. You'll get your food. All that taken away from you, and you're out, and you've got to sort of cope on your own. So I can definitely understand why people struggle with it, and it's not nice to see. But how we improve that, I think, is just by much more awareness of that transition and skills, and making people aware that it's going to be tough, and giving them the tools to, again, it's a coping mechanism. Giving them tools to be able to cope with tough situations. I think the biggest thing for footballers is the addictions. You've got the addictions to alcohol and gambling, and drug abuse. That's a worrying thing, because then obviously that can spiral into a lot of worse things as well. And it's just, I think it's all about education. Just try to educate people as much as we can, you know.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is, like you say, awareness and having support systems perhaps in place. Like, I don't know whether the PFA or the FA could perhaps do a bit more to help players when they do retire, particularly if they retire maybe not through their own choice.
Yeah, that's
So if
tough.
they've had like an injury, then because then it's like you feel like it's been taken from you rather than like with you chose to go out on a high.
Yeah,
and I think the only way you can deal with any sort of mental health stuff, I guess, is encouraging people to talk about it, getting people to talk about it on podcasts and news and radio, and making sure that whether it's a retiring player or a young player or players who are playing now who are struggling, that they know they've got somewhere to go for that kind of support. I don't know how much that's in place, obviously, because I'm not involved in football. I'd like to think that these days is a lot better than what it was, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think there's still work to be done.
I think there's definitely work to be done. I mean, there was nothing when I was playing, and I only retired 5 years ago, and there was not one thing in place at that point. So,
that's crazy. That is to me.
There's huge strides to be made. I think for sure they'll definitely be trying to put more stuff in place. What they're doing and how they're doing it and how much people are aware of it, I'm not sure. I couldn't even tell you what's going on. And I'm a member of the PFA. I'm a member of both PFA in England and in Scotland. And I'm not sure how much is getting done. It's certainly, I think we all need to be doing a lot more about it for sure. I think, other things, the divorce rate and for ex-footballers is phenomenally high, because I think players come out of football, and then they've got to adjust again to normal life with their partners, and it's not all the glamour of what it used to be. I'm not saying all football is glamorous, because there's obviously different divisions, but they're not playing football at all. So, the player doesn't have that release, and obviously the family, there's more pressure on the family then, and the divorce rates is through the roof. I mean, I think the rates as high as like 70 or 80%, and bankruptcy as well is huge in ex-footballers. Another thing that's obviously puts pressure on mental health is, people not earning as much money as what they were, and not maybe have saved enough when they were playing, etc., and all that sort of pressures. And again, if you've not been dealing with that from when you're young, 18, 20, and that's your normal life, to deal with that pressure, to all of a sudden have to deal with it can be difficult. And I think that's where a lot of the people fall down, a lot of the players. And for sure, education needs to be better. Not saying there's not people trying, because there definitely is people trying to help, but we definitely need to be doing more.
Yeah, I say it's really interesting that what you say about the divorce rate. I'd never looked at it from that point of view, but I suppose also when you're playing, you're out in the morning early training, you come back later, midday or like in the afternoon. So then when you retire, all of a sudden you're together all the time. Maybe if the wife doesn't work, they've got a lot more time together. And if the player's struggling to sort of cope with being away from the game, that's going to cause friction, and it not just changes all the aspects which you just talked about, but it also changes their routine for the whole family, because the players not going training and playing matches and away. Players are away a good portion of perhaps every other week, for 3-4 days.
Totally changes the dynamic. And it kind of could work the other way as well, because I know when I was at Cardiff, we had twins. So our twins were born in Cardiff, and luckily for my wife, that because I was playing football, I was away early in the morning, not that early in the morning, but I was home earlier. So I was home like maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, say, in the afternoon, and then the rest of the day I can spend the time helping my wife with the kids and helping the kids grow up. Whereas if you're doing that in a normal life, or you come out of football and then that happens, you probably have to, if you've got a normal sort of job, you're out even earlier, and you probably see your wife less. So you're actually there's less dependency on you as well. So it can work. That can work both ways. And I think that's what people struggle with. I mean, even now, like, so I've got a normal job in the city. I work in the city in Sydney, and then I come home and then I go coaching 2-3 nights a week, and then I've got the games in the weekend. Luckily, our kids are a bit older now, so the kids normally come with me to training or to the games. So, we're all together. But I can certainly see how there's strains on the family and dynamic either way when people retire, for sure.
Yeah, like you say, it changes the whole dynamic, I guess. Okay, so Gavin, thank you so much for joining me today, mate. I really appreciate it. Tell people where they can find you on Twitter.
My Twitter handle is Razo77 and Instagram, I think, same Razo77.
There you go. And guys, you can find us on Twitter at ACEcast_nation. All the shows are available in video form at youtube.com, Ace Podcast Nation. Audio's at Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, pod.co.uk, and basically all the podcasting platforms. And you can join us Facebook.com, ACEcast Nation. I'm hoping Gavin will join me now for a quick minute after this for some quick fire questions. So look out for that on the social media page. And for now, cheers, Gavin, and thanks, guys, for watching.
And sit down.
Yes.